all starting to make sense. As you all know, none of us, Pumps, me, nor you, the listener, are physicians, but we all knew when Kanks went missing and then comes out with his lip sagging, the bruises on his hands, the cankles, that there was a medical episode. And this is why they are accelerating the fascism and accelerating the authoritarianism, because we have a frail, aging, about to drop dead president of the United States. And the Daily Beast is confirming this. Kylie, pop up the headline. President Donald Trump suffered a stroke several months ago and has kept it from the public. A medical expert has claimed. Let's read the excerpts. The article goes on to say, I think his stroke was on the left side of his brain, which controls the right side of the body, Davidson told the biographer Sidney Blumenthal, and Princeton historian. I think the stroke was 6 months ago or more, earlier in 2025. There are videos of him shuffling his feet. We've all seen this. You saw when he was shuffling to go clap like a seal for Vladimir Putin in Alaska. We've all seen that, which is not what we'd seen previously when he was striding on the golf course. We've seen him holding his right hand cradled in his left hand. Earlier in 2025, he was garbling words, which he hadn't done before, and which he's improved upon more recently. Davidson also pointed to what he described as marked episodes of excessive daytime sleepiness, known medically as hypersomnolence, which he said is common among stroke patients. Trump is now routinely appearing to nod off in public appearances, such as White House events. And what I have to say here is we knew it, we called it. You all in the comment section said it. We have been on this. But the whole game, you guys, the whole game, the timeline just shrunk. In order for this authoritarianism to really take hold, it would be better if they did it incrementally, to where we didn't notice as much. They took a little bit here, they took a little bit there. What has happened since these medical episodes? What's happened since we started getting the images of his grotesquely swollen ankles and then all the bruising on his hands? He's nodding off yesterday, talking about milk in the Oval Office. I mean, just like snoring, literally. They have accelerated the timeline. And I think that this is where their lack of impulse control is going to screw them. And this strong man is now this frail senior citizen, dementia patient, stroke victim. We all saw the 9/11 memorial with this. Now, listen, I know all of us have seniors in our life and seniors that have had strokes. That's not the issue. Whether he's 20 or 80, he's still a prick. And I want to be super, super clear on that. But these types of governments rely solely on this one personality and putting things in incrementally. And I think, remember Pumps when he was talking about, I don't know if I'm going to get into heaven, send me $5,000 so I can get into heaven. And he started talking about his own mortality. Now we have it.
Here's the thing. If you're trying to convince me that the White House is lying about his health, color me shocked. And I really didn't need a doctor to tell me. And we all saw with our own eyes how he shuffles in his mouth. And the cognitive decline has been stark. I don't know if that's what he's referring to about the garbled speech, because I still hear the garbled speech, but this is a man that's ego is so tiny and so small and needs constant feeding. And he goes to these circle jerk cabinet meetings where they sit there for 3 hours and say how great he is, and he's falling asleep. That alone tells me it's medical, because nobody wants to hear how great he is more than him.
Whoever invented this really deserves a raise. I don't understand why it took until 2025 for people to realize how amazing this thing is. This 4-piece bundle of pliers is very convenient for repairing.
All right, so now he's escalating. He's escalating, and the people around him are encouraging the escalation. And here's why. J.D. Vance could never win a general. Marco Rubio, I doubt, could ever win a general, although I do think he would have a greater chance than J.D. Vance. But I think Marco Rubio's career is over, thank God. Stephen Miller, the architect of a lot of this, whose words and actions and plans seem to mirror a lot of Nazi Germany's. I don't think if he ran for an election, I don't even think he'd get a vote. I don't even think his own family would vote for him. They've come out and spoken out against him. And so now they're escalating what they have to do to get power, because here's the thing, you guys, they've all committed crimes. And all know historically, when you have an incumbent president in the midterms in a government controlled by the people, the pendulum typically swings and we'll have an ushering in of a blue wave. Considering the fact that this administration has tanked the economy, increased inflation, started stupid trade wars, kidnapped the president of Venezuela, is shuffling all the Venezuelan money to Qatar, and that this is a government of the billionaires, by the billionaires, for the billionaires, it is going to be a blue tsunami of epic proportions. This tsunami is going to bring in accountability. Accountability for these guys means crimes. It means the justice system. And Trump said it, and I told you guys, he is so demented, he's going to start saying all of the quiet parts out loud. Loose lips sink ships. He is talking to a reporter from Reuters, and he says, we shouldn't even have an election regarding the 2026 midterms. And this is what old people do with dementia and that are stroke victims. They start, their filters dissolve and they start speaking the truth. And so this is a moment for the Democrats to really step in and start defining, because all they do on Fox is talk about how masculine he is. They should be on the airwaves 24/7, 365 like they were about Joe Biden. The difference is Joe Biden wasn't trying to cancel elections. Like, this is very serious stuff. This government executed an American citizen and then called her a terrorist afterwards. And so all of this is escalating. The stroke, and then, oh shit, we've got to consolidate power and do what we can do, everything in our power, to cancel elections so that we don't go to prison.
Well, here's the thing. I don't know that Donald Trump thinks he's going to go to prison because he thinks he's immune, because the Supreme Court told him he was. But the people around him,
Right,
I agree with you 1,000%. I mean, Stephen Miller, Elon Musk, Pete Hegseth, they are committing crimes that will be prosecuted. Donald Trump's worried about his wealth, and now he's putting the Venezuela's money in Qatar. Well, the American people will never see one penny of that money. But I agree with you. They don't have a viable option to him. Jay Vance is profoundly unlikable. Ted Cruz, everybody agrees they hate him. Marco Rubio has lost his soul. And then Trump, like, flippantly says, well, I'm going to give Marco Cuba for revenge. Like, he's taking over countries for Marco. That is not going to endear Marco Rubio to the American people. But what's interesting about Trump is, I want to give you full credit. You said he's going to start vomiting up all the information as the cognitive decline goes. And he is. You were 1,000,000% right. So kudos.
Thank you very much. Okay, moving along. Now, the New York Times is reporting that Trump is threatening to invoke the Insurrection Act, which we have been calling this for a very, very, very long time. Breaking news. President Trump threatened to invoke the Insurrection Act to quell protests in Minneapolis after an ICE agent killed a woman there last week. So here's the play, you guys. It's really not that deep. It is, let's go in and be as terroristic and outlandish as possible, get as much footage as you can. They kill an innocent, execute, kill an innocent woman with her lab in the backseat. Absolutely not a violent person. Absolutely was not trying to hit the ICE agent. I don't care what Jesse Waters and all the other low T pink arms say. We all saw it. We all know exactly what happened. And then, instead of de-escalation after that, they're doubling down. Another person has been shot by ICE, and they are escalating the terrorism because Minnesota is their dry run. If they can do it in Minnesota, then they're going to do it everywhere. And they need to shut down these elections. They must shut down these elections. Now, let me say, Angie's 100% correct. Trump has immunity. Those around him don't, but he's probably going to pardon every single one of them. He pardoned, like, Nazis from the January 6th things. Of course, he's going to pardon all these, people surrounding him. But as we get closer to these elections, this is at the epicenter of American democracy, our free and fair elections. And the fact that we have him talking about we shouldn't even have an election. Furthermore, during the campaign, when he was campaigning that he was going to do all this stuff, he said, you just vote this one time for me and you'll never have to vote again. And all of that is coming to fruition. These people have no intentions of leaving. You might remember, we've covered this quite extensively, when he's talking about his ballroom, he talks about drone-proof ceilings and bulletproof glass for the inauguration. Mm-hmm. We will do the inauguration in there. Like, he already knows who's getting inaugurated. There's, every time he says it, it just strikes me like, what are you talking about? Like, whoever wins would be able to pick where they have their inauguration. These guys are idiots, okay? But Stephen Miller is maniacal, and he is actually very smart, like evil smart. And they are playing a game here where they know that if this guy drops dead, we're fucked. He can't pardon us. We don't have a get out of jail free card. If he has another massive stroke, or if he ends up in ICU with a tube down his throat, we are fucked. And those are the conversations that are going on with all of the people surrounding him. They cannot talk to him about him dying because his ego won't allow for that to be said. They would be fired and humiliated and sent out the door. So they are moving as quickly as they can to break civil society and break our elections. And this guy is so easy to manipulate. I'm sure that Stephen Miller rolls in at night, mixes up some Xanax and some chocolate pudding, and probably sits there and feeds him, and not only spoon feeds him chocolate pudding, but spoon feeds him, you're the best president ever, and you need to do the Insurrection Act. Why, you're the best president, why should we even have another election? Because you're better than George Washington. And he's probably there like, oh yeah. And they know they have to do this shit before he drops dead. And every time I see him, I have two things. Number one, the meanest people I've ever known always end up living the longest, which is horrible.
Yeah.
Trump is really mean, but God, he looks like he's in terrible health. It just looks like it is getting worse by the day.
When I read this comment, I wasn't surprised at all, because we've been talking about the insurrection. But here's what they tried to do. They tried to gerrymander. And then California said, you're going to illegally gerrymander, we will legally gerrymander. So that's not going to work. So now we have to, sow civil unrest in Minnesota.
This AI tool will create a stunning ebook direct from your content, whether it's a Microsoft Word document or a Google document.
Here's one thing I just want to point out. The Supreme Court said, which we know Donald Trump will ignore court orders, but they said active military cannot be in these cities. And that's what he's trying to do with Insurrection Act. He is trying to say, yes, there's so much unrest that I can put the U.S. military in cities. And I think they tried to do it with illegal gerrymandering, and now they're just going for broke because, like you said, he's failing. He could go have another stroke tomorrow. But you're right. Stephen Miller, he sits
They're
there
fucked.
and they're fucked.
They're
They are
fucked.
so
He
fucked.
drops dead or has a medical episode where he is hospitalized in the ICU on life support. All of these people that are committing crimes on his behalf are fucked. If he sees it to the end of his term, he'll pardon everybody. But here's the deal: he's not leaving the White House. He will do whatever he can to not leave. We witnessed this ourselves, and everybody watched on January 6th. Here is what the Lincoln Project has put together about his plans. So Donald Trump, Lie Social. If the corrupt politicians of Minnesota don't obey the law and stop professional agitators and insurrectionists from attacking the patriots of ICE who are only trying to do their job, I will institute the Insurrection Act, which many presidents have done before me, and quickly put an end to the travesty that is taking place in that once great state. Okay. Don't keep this up, Kelly. I just want to say, I played this clip before. He's mad because he didn't win Minnesota. And he said in that meeting where Tucker Carlson was standing there clapping like a seal when they were talking about Venezuela with all the oil guys, he said, they say I didn't win Minnesota, but I think I won it 3 times, and everybody was crying about it. Okay, so and they all the Republican MAGA movement are incredibly threatened by Tim Walz. There's like a hard-on obsession for Tim Walz over on the right. So, and there's Somali congresswoman here, so it fits a lot. So the Lincoln Project says this has been the plan all along: foment violence and chaos in the streets of Minnesota, implement the Insurrection Act, declare martial law, suspend elections. You guys, I almost think that the escalation of this, their lack of impulse control, could potentially save us. Because my husband just sent me this article that in a town in Durant, in Oklahoma, it's called Durant. They pronounce it in southeastern Oklahoma, Durant, D-U-R-A-N-T. There are people protesting ICE. And I'm talking about areas where Trump won 80% of the vote. These people hate ICE. People hate this administration. Now, yes, you have the free shows that freebase Fox News all the time. But there are people who are not plugged into the news cycle all the time. And when they see this shit, they are like, no, I don't want this. But let me tell you what I think would be a super important thing to do right now. I think state governors should all convene because the Republican Party is all about states' rights. The reason that there is a total abortion ban in Oklahoma is because the Christian nationalist, fascist, fake Christian Governor Kevin dipshit Stitt is personally against abortion. So he banned it for everybody because states' rights. Well, these governors, we need to do a roll call. Andy Beshear believes that he is the president of the Governors Association, needs to get them all together because this abuse in Minnesota, it's just like when I talk about civil rights, you guys. If these governors leave Minnesota like this, their state's next. And even if your state is a big red state, at some point, these people have no loyalty to anything. At some point, you or somebody in your state might piss this regime off, and they'll sick the dogs on you there too. And so this is something that I think we need profound leadership in this moment to rise up, governors of both parties, to rise up about the abuses that are happening in the state of Minnesota. Which brings me to my final point here. And what are the Democrats doing here? What's Hakeem Jeffries doing about all this? You know, to me, this is a layup. You get a bunch of people, you get a microphone, you have a press conference, you go fuck bananas all the time about it because this is serious shit. And let's
Kizik hands-free shoes feel like freedom. Dynamic tech lets you
see what we have here. Hakeem Jeffries, reminder to all members of the Trump administration. The incitement and engagement in state violence against the American people is a serious crime. Donald Trump will leave office before the 5-year statute of limitations expires. You are hereby on notice. Hakeem Jeffries goes to Twitter and puts these pink arm agents on notice. They don't give a shit.
No.
They don't care. They're not scared of you. And instead of putting ICE agents on notice, why don't you have a productive meeting with governors and really get serious about this? Why not listen to the polling, the real polling, not your stupid crowdsource, new startup Democratic polling? ICE is wildly unpopular. How about don't fund it? How about say, I refuse to allow a budget swell up for a domestic terrorist organization that has a larger budget than the United States Marine Corps when their sole purpose is to go out and terrorize U.S. citizens. If they're so fucking concerned about the border, why aren't they on the border? Why are they in Minneapolis? But they don't do this. And it is so maddening. The Democratic leadership in this moment, I mean, it is worse than Neville Chamberlain. It is beyond the pale.
You look at when this administration started, Elon Musk with Doge, nothing was done. You look at Pete Hegseth with Signalgate and all the shit he's doing, nothing from the Democrats. Now, eyes in the streets, nothing. I think the governor idea is great, but what about defunding ICE? And then what about, let's impeach Christina, let's impeach Pete Hegseth. Even if we can't get the votes, let's start talking about it. Let's put everybody on notice that we're watching, because this is fucking ridiculous. Like, it's to the point now that it's obscene, the Democratic response. A strongly worded letter on Twitter. Are you fucking kidding me? Grow some balls. Stand up for the people that you purport to represent. It's gross.
I completely agree. That's all we have. Please like, subscribe, and comment, and we'll be back later with more news.